Hey folks, welcome back to Dragonfly Projects and Homestead. My name's Alex, and this is the pond, now known as Korra's Pond. I am on the top side of the pond here, as we can see behind me. That is the place where I want to eventually put that tiny house slash shack so that we can use it as a station, base station for when we're skating. I want to have a wood stove in there. I want to have lean-tos where my maple syrup evaporator eventually will be. And then this nice area here where the kids and family can play. And then the pond is right there. Let's get nice and close and let's talk about the pond. Toilet paper roll filled with lint from your dryer. Good fire starter. Nice warm drink by the fire. Thanks for joining me, guys, for this little chat. You will see I have footage from probably since the month that we moved in officially in 2021 of the summer. I've been documenting the pond quite a bit, and there's a lot of footage, and you'll see I'll play it throughout this this conversation that we're having about the pond. First off, the pond is a little bigger than 1/4 of an acre, and this is by my rough Google Earth calculations. I remember when we first were looking at the property during the COVID restrictions, we only had half an hour to visit, and we spent a good chunk of time in the house, so we didn't get to explore the property much. So on the satellite image, the pond didn't look that big, but once you got there in person, it's freaking massive. And that got us very excited because we have so many plans for this pond, whether it be summer or winter. Obviously, with the winter, I want to turn this eventually into a skating rink. The thing is, turning a natural pond that's not close to the house into a skating rink is quite of a challenge, I've come to realize. One, with the size of it, I can't move the snow by hand. I need some kind of snowblower. Obviously, the tractor probably could go in the ice if the ice was thick enough, but honestly, I won't risk such a large investment on hoping that the ice holds. So we have a small snowblower that my dad was able to pick up for us. It was a snowblower that was left on the side of the street. There is some little things to fix on it. But for this year, I'm not even going to attempt it because, as you can see, there's too much snow and I'd be playing catch up too much. And the problem with ice is you need the right conditions to have the right type of ice for skating. Ideally, you hit below freezing before a large snowfall comes, because you want that ice to freeze without any snow on top, because snow does act as an insulator. And what happens is, as snow accumulates, it packs down and creates this white-ish ice, which is very porous, full of air. So it's not great to skate on, and it's very weak. One way you can get around that is you can flood your pond, your skating surface, either by carrying a large tank of water that you're rolling around. The original idea behind the purchase of the Gorilla cart was to do that, and it is still one of my plans to do that. Either fill it up at the house with hot water. Hot water is ideal because it freezes faster. Well, actually, it's not that it freezes faster, it's just when it hits the ice, it's going to melt just the tiniest bit of ice on the top to level it out to make a nicer surface when it freezes. Or if you want, you can just dig a hole and pump out the water and then flood it with the pond water. The problem I've come to realize is the pond is not that deep, and last year I think we hit over a foot of ice, but it wasn't nice ice, and I had a hard time getting the hole in there. Then my stuff would freeze. I bought a little pond pump. I ran it off the generator. It's just a huge mess. It ended up not working, so I abandoned the idea last year. And because the ice was of such poor quality, when I was snowblowing it with my dad's snowblower last year, I didn't realize, but it cracked and some of the water underneath came to the surface, which flooded it nicely, but I never realized that I had started to get some slush inside of the snowblower. So when I stopped to get some gas, once they ran out of gas, it froze and it wouldn't move anymore. And it took a good month to completely unthaw it. So that didn't go so well. But it is my goal eventually to turn this into an amazing skating rink. Once Camille's a little older, she'll be able to enjoy it better. I also want to build a cabin here, just to my left, as a place to gather when we're on the skating rink. I want to have a little wood stove in there to keep it nice and warm. I want to build it with insulation, so kind of like a house, so that we can stay in there. Make it a bit of a retreat if you just want to enjoy nature and sit back and relax, just like I'm doing right now. It's also where I want to have my maple syrup evaporator, where I'm going to process 95% of the maple syrup so that I don't have to do it in the garage running propane. I want to do it burning wood because, again, propane is quite expensive, and I think last year it cost me over $120 worth of propane to get about 20 liters of maple syrup. Obviously you can't put a price on stuff you do yourself, but this is free. So the goal is nice little tiny house that I want to build. Obviously, if we can have the sawmill, use our own wood, that would be extra spectacular. It would also drive the cost down quite a bit. I'm sure buying the sawmill and sawing my own wood would make it cheaper than buying the wood required to build the house, even just with this small house. So that would save a lot of money. I'm not sure yet about the location where I want to put it. I don't want to cut too many trees, but I do want to have a nice view of the pond from the little tiny home. So I don't know if we're going to put it just on top of the hill there or a bit further back. I do want to put some lean-tos on the side. One side I want to have the evaporator. The other side I want it to be a little bit of wood storage, and I want to be able to store the snowblower there and a couple other equipment that I don't want to have to carry back and forth every time I want to use something. So those are the plans for the winter. For the summer, the main goal is I want to maintain a nice, healthy ecosystem inside of the pond. The main factor here is I want to try to drive down mosquito population. I want to get some fishes in there, some amphibians, whatever that is able to keep those darn mosquitoes down. Same thing with all the flies that bite and take a chunk of skin with them. I want to make sure that those eggs don't get a chance to reproduce in the pond, and that there are animals and insects and reptiles present to control that population. I was very surprised last spring to notice that there are fishes in the pond. They were very small and they're very hard to spot. And in the spring, when the snow was melting, the water clarity was very good. But as summer went along, leaves fell in, stuff started to decay, bacteria started growing, some algae showed up, the water became less and less clear, became more and more green, and then it was harder to spot the animals and all the life that was in the pond. But I was surprised. I saw salamanders, a bunch of frogs, toads, fishes, lots of dragonflies, which is amazing and so fitting for our channel name. Let's stoke the fire. Stoking fire. I can't put into words, folks, how nice this is. I never thought that one day I would be on my days off just making a little fire from a tree I fell myself, from wood that I split myself, next to the pond that is on my property. Just listening to the birds, enjoying my mocha. And just overall enjoying life right now. There's one thing I've realized from living here now, it's nice to slow down once in a while, and it's nice to just have some peace and quiet and just look at nature and be in nature. It's funny, I came across a study that proved that spending even just half an hour a day in nature really helps lower your stress levels. So we have big plans for the pond. There's also that darn diving board that I'm not sure they've ever used it as a diving board, but at least I think that's what it is. I want to get rid of it. One, it's broken and dangerous. If it was built like the house was built, I absolutely don't trust it. It's probably been there for about 15 years now. I was talking to one of the neighbors, and one of their first priority when they moved in here was make this pond bigger. This pond used to be there before the ex-owners arrived here. And basically, the farmer that used to farm strawberries used it as a water source for his strawberry fields. And that buoy you can see in the video that I am fetching to remove, from asking around and asking on Reddit, it sounds like it's a way to hold a water intake hose at a specific level. So one, it's not digging and sucking up all the dirt from the bottom, or two, just lying on the surface and sucking in air. So apparently this buoy just floats there, and there was a chain that was quite rusty at the bottom. And it was probably at the time holding a hose in the middle so that it could suck in water to water the strawberry fields. Obviously, it's an eyesore. I took it out. I don't have any plans right now to use it to water anything. I do have some plans to start an orchard in the meadow, but we'll see at that time if I want to go that route to water it, or if I even have to have extra water to water the orchard. Last spring, I was dead set on removing that darn diving board. But lo and behold, when I went with the paddleboard underneath to get the buoy, I noticed there were at least 2 bird nests with eggs in there. So I didn't want to disrupt them. And then the further along we went, I didn't have all the time I wanted. Then I figured, you know what, might as well wait until the water's frozen, easy access underneath it. I'll probably end up cutting it with the chainsaw, unhooking it, and then dragging it out with the tractor. And I'll show you also, there's a giant metal line that goes all the way back to the trees, and I can't wait to remove that. It is such an eyesore, and every time I go underneath it, it just catches the top of the antenna for the tractor. So I cannot wait to get rid of that because it is so ugly. Big plans here. Maybe I'll keep those posts. And I would like to have something to either harness wind power or solar power, or both, one on each. I would like to put some solar panels on the tiny house to see and play around with it, see if it works, what it can power, how efficient it is, how expensive it is. And from there, I would also like to power a bubbler. So something to bring bubbles and aerate the pond. More oxygen, less bacteria, clearer water, more oxygen, happier fish, better fish, more fish. Maybe I will introduce other types of fishes in there, but definitely want a bubbler in there to improve the quality of the water. And also, because it's bubbling, it's creating some waves. Waves means not stagnant, and mosquitoes require stagnant water for their eggs, so hopefully that would also help with that. I would also like to put where I cut off the bridge, I might want to keep that as a little observation platform, and I can always add a little waterfall that would also help aerate and also help circulate the water. And maybe down the road, if water quality is still an issue, I could create some type of natural water filtration to try and help with any algae or any bacteria that I'm trying to get rid of. It's also very interesting to see how wildly the level of the water fluctuates. You can see in the footage there is that broken piece of wood that's hanging from the bridge. At its peak, when the snow melted in the spring, that piece of wood was touching the water. And at its lowest in the fall, right before the snow fell, it was a good 3 feet from the water. So the water did dip a lot. In some of the shots, you'll see that we planted a willow on top of that little hill over there. And at its peak in the spring, the bottom of the hill was not seen. It was underwater. Originally it was in a pot, and then we took it out of the pot and put it in the soil so that it is actually planted and will grow there. So in the spring, at its peak, that little hill was completely underwater, and now we can see a fair bit. So 3 to 4 feet of water drop. Now, whether that's due to evaporation, whether the water is leaking through, I know that very loamy soil here, so very sandy. So I'm not sure what type of material is at the bottom of this pond. I'm not sure if there's a bit of clay to help retain the water, or if it's just that the water table is so high in this area. Because I know my neighbor says that in this area, he's just behind us, he has to run his sump pump every 4 to 5 hours, otherwise his basement would flood on a normal day. While as where we're at, much further on the property, 1, our shallow well ran dry, and 2, I don't have a sump pump in my sump pit. I have never seen any water there, and even though it's pouring water for hours on end, once the rain stops, after about half an hour, there are 0 puddles visible because the sand just drains it all. So maybe this area has a much higher water table versus where we're at the house. I know for our deep well, we didn't hit water until 40 feet. So it's hard to tell. Apparently, I guess we're just unlucky because the neighbor behind me had the same problem as me, but their well was a bit deeper. And what they did is they were pumping water from the bottom of the well into a holding tank. So they're feeding off the holding tank that's in their house. But I didn't have room for a 1,000-liter holding tank. So we had to dig a new well versus my other neighbors who have plenty of water. So I guess it's just dependent on your location. The good thing is I might try to use that sand point that is in the well, the old shallow well. I'll try to pull it out, and maybe I'll reuse it for one of those old school pumping type pumps to try and see if we can get water here at the tiny house. Another potential complication is the access to the pond. There is a dip because there is a small creek that is seasonal that you have to cross to get here, and I'm guessing the previous owners just dug down to make it a nice smooth transition so something like their tractor could come here. There is a way to go all the way around to get here without crossing the creek, but in the spring this back area is very marshy. At least when the snow melts, it takes a good month for it to dry out, and when this creek is active, it's flowing with a lot of water, and there's no way that I would attempt to cross that creek with the tractor. I would probably just destroy everything because the soil is so soft, or I would just get stuck. Eventually, I'd either like to put in a culvert and then backfill it with some rocks. I do have a crap ton of broken down cement I can use to backfill that and then just put some topsoil on top. Or I've toyed with the idea of building a little bridge using the wood I have. When I started milling by hand with the chainsaw, there would be an option to try and build a little bridge. The upside of the bridge is a lot cheaper because I don't have to pay anything except the fuel for the chainsaw. The culvert is quite expensive. I would have to backfill. I probably don't have enough dirt on hand. I would probably have to bring in some, but it would probably be much easier and would probably be much safer, I guess, because there's no chance of it rotting away eventually. We'll see. It's on the list of things to do, but we'll get to it eventually. And this pond will always hold a special place in my heart, that's for sure. And I can't wait to share those special moments with the family. Once we have the skating rink going, I can't wait to bring in the family, have little skating parties, cook some food while the kids are skating, and then just have a nice fire, heat up some marshmallows, have a nice hot drink. So many nice projects that I can't wait to share with the family. But once again, always the constraints of time and money. It's a bit hard to spend money on a pond when your home is half built, half renovated, and half not finished. Let's go take a quick peek at the top of the pond there. Here you can see the top side of the bridge / diving board. So I'll probably end up keeping those posts. I'll remove the metal part and maybe put either wind and solar or something like that with a little control panel there. I'm not sure. There is an old truck box that tipped over during the winds. I need to pull it out of there, but I never thought I'd have this much snow this fast, and it's probably frozen in place right now. And you can see the line here that goes all the way around, and it attaches to one of the trees over there. So I can't wait to get rid of that because, one, I don't want to damage the trees anymore, and two, what an eyesore. And I am not convinced that this is safe. And this thing, not that high. The tractor always keeps hitting it, so it's not pleasant. One day it will tear something off if there's too much snow, that's for sure. So I need to get rid of that, but I am not crazy. Well, I am, but not that crazy, so I will wait until I have some help so that I can have somebody on top while I'm at the bottom operating the tractor so that nothing falls on me as I'm trying to remove it. So access the pond, and then you would just get up here, and this is where I would love to have the house, the tiny house. So I'm not sure if I want it there or a little closer to here. Do I want to get rid of those trees? I do want wind protection because I don't want too much snow to be blown on top of the ice. But I do want to have view of the ice from the house in case the adults want to supervise the kids. So we'll see, I'm not sure. And I would absolutely love a covered porch and a screened in porch so that we can enjoy it 24/7 and 365 days of the year, because when it's mosquito season, you don't want to be outside unprotected. If there's one thing I realize, it's you can't put a price on this. Sometimes it's nice to just slow down and enjoy the little things. On that note, I'm gonna go back to enjoying my nice hot mocha. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.